She grew up in a small settlement near wide-open land where the wind never rested and the nights felt longer than the days. From the time she was very young, fear lived quietly inside her. It was not a loud fear, but a steady one passed down through. Whispers and warnings from elders, every story she heard carried the same message: stay away, be careful, do not trust her. Childhood was shaped by those words. She learned to watch the horizon. Before she learned to laugh freely, she learned to listen. For danger, before she learned to dream, people around her believed fear was protection. They thought it kept them alive. They believed teaching fear was the same as teaching wisdom. She accepted this without question. For her, it was normal. Fear was part of daily life, like cooking food or fetching water. When she walked outside, she stayed close to others. When the sun began to fall, she hurried home. Her heart beat faster whenever the wind changed or a shadow moved where it should not. The stories always spoke of Apache warriors. They were described as cruel, silent, and unforgiving. According to the elders, they appeared without warning and disappeared just as fast. These stories were repeated so often that they stopped sounding like stories and started feeling like truth. She never met one, but in her mind she knew exactly who they were. As she grew older, she tried to push fear aside. She wanted a life that felt lighter. She wanted to wake up without tension in her chest, yet fear had deep roots. It followed her in her thoughts and dreams. Even when nothing happened, she waited for something to go wrong. Her days followed a simple pattern: morning work, midday rest, evening chores. She helped where she could and stayed out of trouble. She was known as quiet and respectful, someone who followed rules, someone who listened more than she spoke. People trusted her because she never challenged the way things were. Inside her, questions lived quietly. She wondered why fear felt so heavy if it was meant to protect. She wondered why no one ever spoke of peace, only danger. These thoughts stayed hidden. She never shared them with anyone. Morning began like all the others. The air was cool, and the sky was wide and clear. She set out to complete a small task not far from the settlement, something she had done many times before. She told herself there was nothing to fear. As the hours passed, the wind shifted, clouds moved faster than expected. The land felt different, not threatening, but unfamiliar. She realized she had gone farther than planned. The path she thought she knew looked less certain. Her confidence faded slowly, replaced by unease. She turned back, but the direction felt wrong. Every step made doubt stronger. The sun moved and shadows stretched. She felt alone in a way she never had before. Her heart raced, not because of danger, but because of uncertainty. She called out softly, hoping someone would answer. No voice returned, only the sound of wind moving through dry grass. Her fear grew heavier than before. It was no longer based on stories, but on reality. She was alone and unsure. Evening approached. Panic tried to take control. She remembered all the warnings, all the fear-filled lessons taught since childhood. Her mind went to the same place it always did, to the image of Apache warriors waiting unseen. Her body felt tired, but her mind refused rest. She forced herself to keep moving, choosing a direction and trusting it without certainty. Each step felt like a risk, yet standing still felt worse. When the light began to fade, she noticed signs she did not understand: tracks, marks, patterns in the land. Her breath caught. Fear tightened around her chest. This was the moment she had been warned about. Her entire life she wanted to run, but her legs felt weak. She wanted to hide, but there was nowhere to go. The land was open, honest, unforgiving. She felt small and exposed. Her thoughts raced through every story she had ever heard. None of them offered comfort, only images of danger and loss. She whispered a quiet hope, not knowing who she was asking or if anyone would listen. Then she sensed a presence. Not a sound, not a movement, but a feeling like the air itself had changed. Her fear sharpened, becoming almost unbearable. She stood frozen, unsure whether to turn or stay still. Slowly a figure appeared at a distance, not rushing, not hiding. Simply there. Her mind filled the shape with every fear she had been taught. Her breath grew shallow. She expected anger, violence, or threat, but none came. The figure did not move closer, did not raise a weapon, did not shout. He stood grounded, calm, aware. She could not understand it. This was not how the stories went. Her fear did not disappear, but confusion joined it. She watched closely, trying to read intention. Every small movement mattered. Time felt stretched, fragile. She realized in that moment that her fear had prepared her
Ow.
to expect the worst but not to understand the unknown. Her heart struggled between running and staying. Stillness held her in place. The land around them felt quiet, not tense, not violent, just silent. The kind of silence that makes thoughts louder. She noticed details she never would have before. The steady posture, the patience, the lack of aggression. Her mind argued with itself. Everything she believed was being challenged, and she was not ready. Yet she could not deny what she was seeing. The fear she felt did not match the reality in front of her. She remained standing, caught between the past and the present, between what she was taught and what she was experiencing. This moment marked the beginning of something she did not yet understand. The sun slipped lower, casting long shadows. She knew this encounter would change her, whether she wanted it to or not. The fear that shaped her life had finally met the truth, and nothing would ever feel the same again. She stood still longer than she thought possible. Her body felt tense, yet rooted to the ground. The figure in front of her did not rush or threaten. He simply waited, as if time did not matter. The silence between them felt heavy, but not dangerous. Her heart beat loudly in her ears. She tried to slow her breath. She remembered every warning she had ever heard, but none of them told her what to do now. Fear had always given clear rules. Run, hide, stay away. But this moment followed no rule. She knew the distance between them remained the same. The figure did not step closer, yet did not step away either. The air felt calm, strange, and steady. She noticed how the wind moved around him, how he stood balanced like part of the land itself. She wanted to speak, but her voice would not come. Her throat felt dry. Her thoughts moved fast, yet her body stayed frozen. She wondered if he was waiting for her to move, or if he was simply watching to understand. Minutes passed, maybe longer. She lost sense of time. The sky slowly changed color as the sun continued its path. Shadows stretched across the open land. Felt exposed, yet somehow scentless. She took a small step back, her foot pressed into the earth, making a soft sound. The figure did not react with anger or speed. He only shifted his weight slightly, as if acknowledging her movement. That simple reaction confused her. Fear had taught her to expect sudden action. Loud voices raised weapons. But what she saw was patience. She did not understand it, and that made her fear feel unsteady. She noticed his eyes. They were alert but not cruel, focused but not cold. They watched her carefully, as if measuring not her weakness but her fear. She realized he was not looking at her like a threat but like a question. Her chest tightened as emotion rose. Fear mixed with exhaustion and relief. She had been holding herself together for so long that the stillness made her feel fragile. She tried again to speak. This time a quiet sound escaped her lips. It was not a word, more like a breath. The figure responded by lowering himself slightly, not in surrender but in respect. She did not know the meaning, but felt that she understood then that he was trying to show he meant no harm. Not with words, but with posture, with distance, with calm presence. This was something no story had ever described. Her fear did not vanish, but it softened enough for curiosity to appear. She wondered who he was beyond the stories, beyond the labels placed on him by others. She wondered if he carried fear too slowly. She sat down on the ground, keeping her eyes on him. She needed rest and could not hide it. Her body felt weak from walking and worry. She did not know if sitting made her safer or more vulnerable. But it felt honest. The figure remained standing for a moment, then also lowered himself onto the ground across from her. The distance between them stayed wide enough to feel safe, but close enough to feel real. They sat in silence, sharing the same space, without touching, without speaking. The land around them seemed to breathe quietly. The wind carried small sounds that felt softer now. She noticed details she never would have allowed herself to see before. The way he watched the horizon, the calm control in his movements, the awareness of everything around him. Her fear began to feel old, like something inherited rather than earned. She wondered how many times she had been wrong about things she never questioned. Hunger reminded her of her body. Her stomach tightened painfully. She had not eaten since morning. She tried to ignore it, but the sound betrayed her. The figure noticed. He reached slowly toward a small bundle near him. Her body tensed again, but she did not run. He removed something simple and held it out, placing it on the ground between them. Then he moved his hand back. Food. Her mind struggled to accept it. Fear argued that it was a trick, but her body needed strength. She waited, watching him. Closely, he did not move. He did not watch her hands, only the space around them carefully. She leaned forward and took the food. It was plain but nourishing. She ate slowly, expecting at any moment for the calm to break, but it did not. She felt something unfamiliar, a gratitude, mixed with confusion, mixed with shame. She had been taught to see him as less than human, yet here he was offering care without demand. When she finished, she placed the remaining piece back on the ground, pushing it toward him. He accepted it with a slight nod. No smile, no words, just acknowledgement. The light continued to fade. Evening approached, bringing cooler air. She knew she could not stay here forever. She also knew she could not return alone in the dark. She looked toward the direction she believed the settlement lay, then back at him, unsure how to ask for help. She raised her hand, pointing, then lowering it, hoping he would understand. He followed her gesture. His eyes moved across the land, then he looked back at her and slowly nodded. Once relief washed through her, so strong it almost brought tears. She had expected danger. Instead, she found guidance. Stood in motion gently for her to follow, keeping distance, allowing her to move at her own pace. She gathered her strength and rose unsteady, but determined. They began walking side by side, not together, but in the same direction. The land felt different now, less threatening, more alive. She realized she was not just walking toward safety, she was walking away from fear that had shaped her entire life. Though the path ahead remained uncertain, she knew something inside her had already changed. This was only the beginning. The days that followed were not easy, but they were different. She was still cautious, still alert, but something inside her had shifted. Curiosity had begun to take root where fear had dominated. She watched the figure closely, noticing every small action, trying to understand what it meant. He moved with purpose, but without hurry. Every task he did seemed simple, yet careful. He gathered food from the land and prepared it quietly. She observed him, learning without words how he respected the earth, how he valued every small thing. She tried to mimic some of his actions. At first, clumsy and unsure, she learned to move with awareness rather than panic. She discovered that the land could teach patience if she was willing to listen. They spoke little, but communication existed in other ways. Glances, gestures, small nods. They learned a rhythm together, not forced, but natural. She began to understand him not through stories, but through observation. Her mind began to question everything she had believed since childhood. The stories that had painted fear as truth now felt distant. She wondered why adults had told only frightening tales, why they had never shown what could be good one. Morning, she woke before the sun and noticed the figure already awake. He was moving silently, gathering water from a small stream. She joined him, watching carefully, her movements slow and deliberate. He did not speak. She did not expect him to. She began to realize that some lessons did not need words. They were understood through attention, through respect, through watching the world and learning to move within it. She remembered fear coming at night. The stories she had been told haunted her dreams. Yet as she observed him, she realized that courage and trust could grow slowly like plants from seeds. She wanted to feel that trust for herself. They traveled slowly, following trails she did not recognize. She noticed how he listened to the sounds of the wind, how he observed the ground for signs. She tried to do the same, copying him, yet also finding her own way over time. She began to feel small triumphs. She moved without tripping over roots. She spotted an animal before it ran. She learned when to step quietly, when to pause. When she succeeded, she felt pride she had never known before. She began to see kindness in actions she had not considered before. She watched how he cared for small creatures, how he shared what little he had with thoughtfulness. She saw the world from his perspective, a world where strength was not measured by fear or aggression, but by patience and awareness. Her nights became less lonely. She felt safer even without walls or protection. She realized that true safety was not only from others, but from understanding and respect for the land and its creatures. They rested by rivers or beneath trees. She learned to notice stars without fear, learning patterns in the sky that guided travel and provided comfort. She asked questions, silently watching how he responded without words. He shared no history, no tales of past battles, yet she sensed depth in his eyes, pain and loss perhaps, but also wisdom and patience. She did not need his story to learn from him. She learned through observation, through reflection days, turned into a routine of discovery and learning. She realized that the fear that had ruled her life was slowly being replaced with understanding of herself, of the world, and a figure who had once terrified Hirsch began to notice how he treated obstacles in their path. He did not rush. He did not rush. He did not panic. He considered each move, each step, each choice carried weight, yet also flexibility. She mirrored his approach and found her own strength in it. She also began to notice her own reactions. Her heart still raced at unknown sounds, but she could pause and assess. She could decide when danger was real and when it was only fear inherited from stories. She began to separate imagination from reality. One afternoon, as they rested by a shallow stream, she watched him prepare water. She tried to imitate his method, her hands clumsy at first, yet he watched patiently, making no correction. Only his calm presence guided her. She felt a quiet connection forming. Her thoughts wandered to what she had once believed the Apache warriors of the stories were not cruel beings. They were humans, like her, like him. They had their own ways of seeing the world, ways she could now begin to understand slowly. She realized that the bond forming was built on respect and observation. She respected his skill, his patience, his quiet presence. He respected her attention, her effort, her willingness to learn. At night she thought about the past, the settlement, the stories of fear. She wondered how many others lived in fear without reason, how many had never had the chance to see truth beyond tales. She felt gratitude for the opportunity to learn differently. The figure never forced guidance, never demanded attention or obedience. Every lesson was subtle, every instruction silent. She discovered that true teaching came through example and presence, not through words or fear. She began to notice small smiles, sometimes when she succeeded, sometimes when she understood something without being told, sometimes when she acted with care. She realized that even without words, recognition could be powerful. Her confidence grew slowly. She learned to move across the land with awareness. She learned to observe without immediate judgment. She began to trust herself, her instincts, her perception. They encountered small challenges along the way, rivers to cross, animals to avoid, weather to endure. Each obstacle became a lesson. She watched him react, and then reacted herself. Learning the balance of patience and action, she began to wonder about his life beyond their meeting. She imagined challenges and struggles unseen. She realized that fear had not only shaped her life, but perhaps also his in ways she could not yet understand. By observing him, she learned courage and care could exist together. She understood strength was not only in force but also in patience and calm. She realized that love for life and respect for others could grow silently within a person. She also began to see the value of silence, not loneliness, but reflection and connection. Silence allowed understanding without words. She learned that listening carefully could reveal more than speaking loudly. Her fear did not vanish entirely, but it no longer ruled her life. She understood when to be cautious, when to act, when to observe. She felt empowered by knowledge and experience rather than trapped by fear. Her bond with him grew not through words, but through shared presence. They moved together yet independently, learning from each other and from the land. Each day brought small victories. Each day reshaped understanding of herself and the world. She began to imagine life differently. She imagined courage without fear, domination without aggression, care without weakness. She felt hope rising slowly in her chest. By the end of their journey through one stretch of land, she realized that the warrior had taught her not by stories but by example. By patience, by observation, by gentle guidance, she had begun to see a world beyond fear and a life beyond stories. Days became longer as they traveled together. She felt changes inside her she did not fully understand. Fear still visited, but it was quieter now, replaced with a new feeling. A bond was forming, a connection she could not explain. At first she observed him closely and began to notice small gestures that showed care and attention. He did not speak of feelings she did not expect him to, but their actions communicated more than words could. He adjusted her path when the land was tricky. He waited patiently When she struggled, he shared food and water without expectation. She felt seen and respected in ways she had never known her. Heart felt strange. The fear that had always been strongest was now mixed with something tender, something that made her chest tighten and her thoughts swirl. She tried to ignore it, pretending it was only gratitude or relief. But deep inside, she knew it was more. They rested by rivers and beneath trees. She watched him observe the world around them, every movement careful and deliberate. She tried to follow his example, learning to act with awareness and consideration. She found joy in learning she had not known could exist. Sometimes she caught him looking at her. She felt exposed, but also acknowledged it was not a look of desire, but of respect, of understanding, of connection. She felt warmth she could not explain. She began to notice small moments that mattered. The way he moved quietly when others slept, the way he shared what he had with care, the way he reacted. When she succeeded in something difficult, her heart began to open. Slowly, fear still lingered in moments when she faced unknowns. She remembered the stories from her childhood, yet when danger or uncertainty appeared, he was there, steady and calm, showing her that courage did not need to be loud or aggressive. It could exist in quiet actions, in careful choices. She began to trust not only him but also herself. She felt confidence in her own decisions, in her own movements. She could now tell when fear was real and when it was inherited. She could see danger clearly without panic. She felt strength she had never known. As it moved through the land, she began to think about the meaning of love. Love she had once believed was only for safety or family. Now she realized it could be something quiet, patient, and careful, something that grew slowly with understanding and shared experience. One evening, as the sun dipped low, they rested by a stream. She watched him prepare the water carefully. She tried to help, moving with the same patience. She realized that the small acts of care were expressions of something deeper than she had expected. Her thoughts wandered to herself, to her past, to the life shaped by fear. She understood now how much she had changed. She was learning that fear could be replaced by trust, by connection, by care. She felt gratitude and wonder at the world she was beginning to understand. Night she stayed awake longer than usual, thinking about the bond forming. She realized that love could exist without words, without promises, without rush. It could grow slowly with observation and patience. It could be based on respect, on shared experience, on understanding. She thought about the warrior and what he must have lived through. She imagined hardships and pain. She realized that the patience and care he showed her must have been learned through struggle. She felt respect and admiration for him as a human being, not a story, not a legend, but a living person. As the days passed, she noticed her own actions changing. She moved more deliberately. She thought more carefully. She acted with consideration for the world around her. For the one who traveled beside her, she felt responsible in a new way for herself, and for the connection that had grown between them. One morning they encountered a challenge that tested her new confidence. A river flowed rapidly, blocking their path. She felt the old fear rising, ready to take control, yet she looked at him and noticed his calm presence. She remembered what she had learned from observation and experience. Assessed the river, she watched for patterns, she considered each step. She realized that courage was not absence of fear, but acting despite it. She moved carefully, one step at a time. He moved beside her, not guiding, but supporting. Her heart pounded, but her mind stayed steady. They crossed safely. She felt exhilaration mixed with relief and gratitude. She looked at him and noticed his acknowledgement. Not in words, but in a subtle nod. She felt seen, understood, appreciated, and cared for. All the lessons and silent guidance culminated in this moment. Her feelings became harder to ignore. She realized that she cared deeply for him in a way that went beyond gratitude. She felt warmth when he was near. She thought about him during quiet moments. She wondered if he felt the same. She feared the answer, yet hoped quietly. They continued their journey. The land changed, but their rhythm remained. They moved with awareness, with patience, with a silent bond that grew stronger each day. She began to understand that love could exist without grand gestures. It could be a quiet, constant presence, a mutual care, a shared understanding. She remembered the stories of warriors, cruel and unforgiving. She realized the stories had lied, or at least had shown only one side. She saw the humanity of the warrior. She saw patience, courage, kindness, and care. She realized that fear can blind and that love can. Open eyes, her nights became more peaceful. She felt warmth even when alone. She thought about the lessons learned through observation and experience. She realized that the most important lessons were never spoken but shown through action. She began to imagine a future where fear no longer ruled her. She could feel love without confusion. She could act with courage without hesitation. She could trust and be trusted. She could see people for who they truly were, not for the stories told about them. Her bond with him deepened. She began to rely on him not out of fear but out of trust and connection. She noticed how he anticipated needs, how he responded to her without speaking. She understood that love can be patient, silent, and gentle, yet powerful and transformative. They rested beneath stars, counting constellations. She observed the world with him. She learned to feel connected to life and to people. She realized that her fear had been replaced by understanding, by patience, by care. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. The bond had grown to something strong and undeniable. She could no longer deny the feelings inside her. They were not fleeting but constant, steady as the earth beneath their feet. She understood that love could grow from respect and patience, not just from passion or excitement. She also noticed how he seemed to care for her in subtle ways, adjusting her path, helping her move safely, sharing resources, watching quietly over her. She realized that love had many forms, many small acts that added up to something profound. She thought about returning to her old life, the settlement with its stories and fear. She realized she had changed too much to be the same. She felt courage and hope that she could carry forward. She understood that love and trust could be stronger than fear. She had grown in confidence, in courage, in understanding. She had learned that patience, observation, and respect could create a connection stronger than any story of fear. She had begun to see the world differently, and herself differently. The journey continued, but she knew that her heart and mind had already changed. She felt love growing in ways she had never imagined. She understood that fear had been replaced, not by absence, but by presence, by understanding, by connection. She walked beside him, feeling safe, feeling acknowledged, feeling alive. She had learned that love could exist quietly, patiently, carefully, without force or demand. She had learned to trust herself and others. She had learned to see the world and people with open eyes and an open heart. The journey reached its final stretch. She felt a mixture of emotions, excitement, relief, and a quiet sadness. She had learned so much about herself, about courage, about trust, about love. She knew that nothing would ever feel the same again. The land around them began to change. Familiar signs appeared, distant hills and rivers that reminded her of the settlement. She felt anticipation, but also uncertainty. She wondered how she would return to the life she once knew, and if she would even want to. The warrior walked beside her, steady, calm, patient. She realized that she no longer felt the old fear of being near him. She felt trust and connection and something deeper that made her chest warm and her thoughts gentle as they moved. She reflected on all she had learned. She remembered the fear that had ruled her childhood, the stories that had painted the world as dangerous and cruel. She realized that those stories had shaped her mind, but they had not shaped her soul. Her own experiences had taught her more than any tale could. She remembered the small lessons, the quiet teachings, the moments of observation that had grown into understanding. She thought about how she had learned patience by watching him, how she had learned courage by following him, how she had learned love by feeling it slowly rise inside her. Her heart felt full. She realized that love did not have to be loud or demanding. It could be quiet, patient, constant. It could grow in the spaces between actions and the care for small things and the respect for each other. She felt gratitude for the opportunity to learn this. As the sun moved lower, she noticed the shadows stretching across the land. She felt a sense of peace that had been missing from her life. She realized that the journey had not only taught her about the warrior, about trust, about love, but about herself, about strength, about the capacity to change. They stopped by a small grove to rest. She watched him gather water and prepare a simple meal. She helped quietly, moving with care and awareness. She realized how much she had grown, how much she had learned, how far she had come from the fearful girl who had first met him. She thought about the life waiting for her at the settlement. She wondered how people would see her now, how they would react to the changes in her, how they would understand the courage and wisdom she had gained. She realized that it did not matter what others thought. Her life had transformed from the inside. The warrior sat nearby. She noticed how he watched the land, how he observed her, how he seemed aware of everything around him. She felt a deep sense of connection. She realized that their bond was not just companionship, but something stronger. Something built on understanding, respect, trust, and love. She remembered the moments when she had feared him, when she had expected violence or cruelty. She smiled quietly to herself, realizing how wrong she had been, realizing how much fear could distort perception. She felt pity for the stories she had believed and gratitude for the truth she had experienced. The day grew cooler. She wrapped herself in a simple cloth. She noticed the patterns of light and shadow on the ground, the way the wind moved through the leaves. She felt alive in a way she had never known before. Every sensation felt clearer, sharper, more meaningful. She turned to the warrior. She felt an urge to speak to him, to express what she could not put into words. She realized that words were not necessary, that the bond they shared could communicate without them. She reached out her hand slowly, and he met it with his own. The touch was simple, yet profound. It carried years of understanding and patience and care. It carried the lessons of the journey, the transformation of fear into trust and love. She felt a deep sense of completion and fulfillment. She thought about the future. She could return to the settlement, changed, strong, aware. She could share what she had learned or keep it within herself. She realized that the lessons were hers and hers alone. She could choose how to live with them. She could choose courage over fear, trust over suspicion, love over avoidance. They continued walking slowly toward the settlement. She noticed how she moved differently, how she observed the land, how she considered each step and each decision. She realized that she had internalized the lessons she had learned through observation and experience. She felt empowered by knowledge and understanding. As the settlement came into view, she felt a sense of relief mingled with nostalgia. She remembered her childhood, the warnings, the stories, the life shaped by fear. She realized that while that life was part of her past, it did not define her present or her future. She looked at the warrior. She felt warmth in her chest and clarity in her mind. She understood that he had changed her life, not just through his presence, but through the lessons he had shown her, through his patience, care, and trust. She realized that love could exist quietly and profoundly. The settlement welcomed her with familiar sights and sounds. She moved with awareness, yet also with ease. She noticed how she no longer reacted with automatic fear. She observed and assessed. She acted with calm confidence. She felt grounded and connected in a way she had never known. She thought about sharing her experiences. She knew the stories of fear would still exist for others. Yet she also knew that understanding and courage could be passed quietly through example, through presence. She realized that her life could now be a living lesson of transformation. She reflected on the journey, the lessons, the bond, the love that had grown slowly. She realized that fear had been a teacher, but love had been the ultimate transformation. She understood that courage was the bridge between the two, and that trust was the path. A warrior stood beside her. She felt a sense of gratitude and peace. She realized that she had not only learned to see him as human, but also to see herself as strong, capable, and worthy of trust and love. She felt a quiet joy that filled her heart. As the sun set, she sat quietly reflecting on the journey. She thought about how far she had come, how much she had learned, how much she had grown. She realized that life would always carry challenges, but she now possessed the courage and love to face them. She felt connected to the world, to the land, to the people, to the warrior. She realized that fear no longer ruled her life. She felt empowered by experience, guided by patience, nurtured by trust, and blossoming in love. Her journey had reached a turning point. She knew that she would carry the lessons forever, that the bond she had formed was lasting, that the transformation within her was profound and complete. She felt a sense of peace, fulfillment, and hope. As night fell, she looked at the stars. She reflected on courage, love, trust, and transformation. She understood that the journey from fear to love was not only about the warrior, but about herself and the strength she had discovered within. She felt ready for whatever life would bring next. She woke to a soft light breaking through the trees. The land seemed calm and familiar, yet she felt a sense of clarity she had not experienced before. The journey had taught her much, but now she understood that learning never truly ends. The warrior was already awake. He moved quietly, tending to simple tasks. She watched him with appreciation. She realized how much she had learned from simply observing his patience and care. His presence was steady, reassuring, and inspiring. She felt a sense of freedom in her chest. A freedom from fear, from old stories, from the limitations she had once believed. She knew that she could face the world with courage, trust, and understanding. She felt capable and aware as they moved through the land. She noticed small changes in herself. She walked with confidence. She observed carefully. She acted deliberately. She understood the balance between caution and action. She could trust her instincts and rely on her own judgment. They traveled together, sharing moments of quiet reflection. She began to speak more aloud, though her words were simple. She asked questions about the land, about life, about choices. He responded with gestures, with subtle guidance, with patient demonstration. She understood more through action than words. She remembered the fear that had once ruled her heart. She thought about how it had shaped her childhood, her thoughts, her decisions. She realized that fear was a teacher, but it had been limited in its lessons. Love, courage, and trust were the keys to a fuller understanding. They walked. She reflected on the growth that had occurred. She felt gratitude for the warrior, for his presence, for the lessons, for the quiet bond that had formed. She understood that true connection was built on respect, observation, care, and patience. They came upon a hilltop from which the settlement could be seen in the distance. She felt anticipation mixed with reflection. She thought about how much she had changed, how much she had grown. She felt stronger, wiser, more aware. She felt ready for life beyond the journey. Warrior moved beside her. She noticed the subtle ways he guided her without speaking. She realized that guidance could be quiet, steady, and powerful. She felt trust and comfort in his presence. She knew that the bond they shared was enduring. She remembered the stories she had grown up with, the tales of danger and cruelty, the fear that had seemed so real. She realized now that understanding, experience, and observation were far more valuable than inherited fear. She felt grateful for the chance to see truth. They rested by a small stream. She watched him prepare water and food. She assisted carefully. She noticed the patience and care in every movement. She realized that these simple acts carried lessons about life and love and trust. Thought about her own feelings. She recognized love growing steadily in her heart. It was quiet, patient, and constant. Not demanding or overwhelming, she felt trust intertwined with affection. She understood that love could exist without grand gestures, yet be profoundly powerful. As the sun moved higher, she noticed how the land seemed alive with opportunity. She felt a connection to the earth, the wind, the water, the life around her. She realized that true strength came from understanding and respect for the world and for those who shared it with her. She reflected on courage. She remembered how she had crossed rivers, faced unknown paths, and observed dangers. She realized that courage was not absence of fear, but the ability to act. Despite it, she felt pride in herself and her growth, and in the lessons she had absorbed. They continued walking through valleys and forests, observing nature and learning from each small challenge. She noticed the subtleties of life, the balance of movement, the careful choices required to thrive. She felt grateful for the chance to witness and participate in this understanding. Her bond with the warrior deepened. She recognized his attention to her needs, his subtle gestures of care, and his patient guidance. She felt a quiet love rooted in mutual respect, trust, and experience. She realized that connection could be profound, even without words. As evening approached, they found a sheltered spot to rest. She watched the colors of the sky shifting slowly. She felt a deep sense of peace. She understood that life could be lived fully with awareness, with presence, with understanding, and love. She thought about the future. She knew that returning to the settlement would bring challenges, yet she felt confident. She knew that she carried courage, patience, and trust within her. she understood that love could guide decisions and shape her path. She felt ready for the unknown. The warrior moved beside her, showing readiness for the journey ahead. He did not speak, but his presence conveyed security and reassurance. She felt supported, yet independent. She realized that strength was found in both connection and self-reliance. She remembered moments of fear from the past and compared them to her feelings now. She felt empowered. She understood that fear could be transformed by experience, by observation, by patience, by love. She felt a sense of completion and growth. They reached a small hill overlooking a wide valley. She saw the landscape stretching endlessly. She felt possibilities unfolding. She realized that life was full of lessons to be learned and experiences to be embraced. She felt excitement for continued discovery. Reflected on the lessons of courage, trust, patience, and love, she understood that these qualities were intertwined. She could act with courage when guided by trust. She could nurture love through patience. She could observe and learn from others while maintaining her own path. The warrior prepared a simple meal. She assisted, watching carefully. She noticed the respect for the land, for resources, for life itself. She realized that care in small actions reflected care in life. She felt inspired to carry these lessons forward as night fell. She looked at the stars. She reflected on the journey, the lessons, the transformations, and the bond she had formed. She felt gratitude for every step, every observation, every quiet act that had shaped her. She understood that the journey from fear to love was ongoing, yet profound. She felt a quiet joy and contentment. Heart and mind had changed forever. She could face life with courage, with trust, with understanding, with love. She felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The warrior remained beside her. She felt a connection that was unspoken yet complete. She realized that the bond they had formed would endure. She felt gratitude, love, and respect intertwined in a way that strengthened her spirit and guided her path. She thought about her life ahead, the lessons she had learned, the growth she had experienced, and the love she had discovered. She felt empowered. She understood that fear no longer ruled her. She could choose courage, trust, and connection. She felt ready to embrace life fully. She breathed deeply, feeling the cool night air. She reflected on the journey, on the transformation, on the bond, on the love that had grown. She understood that life was a continuous path of learning and connection. She felt prepared for all that lay ahead. She felt strength and serenity intertwined. She realized that love could exist quietly, patiently, and profoundly. She felt trust in herself, trust in the warrior, and trust in the journey. She understood that fear had been replaced with courage, understanding, and love. She closed her eyes for a moment, savoring the calm, the warmth, and the transformation. She knew that she had grown into a person capable of facing the world with strength, awareness, and compassion. She felt ready to live fully, guided by the lessons she had learned and the love she had discovered.